So, welcome again to Surpass Community Webinar, joined today by Rebecca Rosenlund and Sean MacDonald from telc Language Tests in their offices in Frankfurt. And we're going to talk today about, well, we call it the future of language testing because that's what you guys specialise in. However, we're really talking about how you've come to construct your questions, moving from on paper to on screen, the new innovation that you're bringing with that, because you've only been with us for a couple of years now, using Surpass. It's been really impressive seeing how you've kind of grabbed the ball by the horn, so to speak, but also how you've got that into your company culture, if that's a fair way of putting it. There's been some small resistance, but you've proven that it can work, you can make things better. And then we'll have a look at some of the items that you've created as examples, some of these things. We'll look at just make sure I'm getting this right, the validity arguments that we've been putting forward and the standard setting meetings that you have to justify these question types.
Absolutely.
And then we'll finish off just looking a little bit at some of your future developments, how you've benefited the language testing community and the benefits you've both given to and taken from being a part of the Surpass community. Okay, so we've got a lot to fit into the short time scale. So if I hand over to you to start, Rebecca, could you tell us a little bit about telc? Who is telc Language Tests?
Yeah, telc is an education provider based here in Frankfurt, Germany. We're specialized in language testing, but we are way more than that. So we also offer trainings for examiners. We are a publisher. We are publishing lots of material for the German language. And we have around 3,000 test centers around the world where people can do our tests. And of course, we are innovators because since last year we have our own digital development team with which we want to explore the world of digital language testing.
That sounds brilliant. I think one of the other things we talked about off camera slightly is that we mentioned high stakes testing a lot, and a lot of people assume this means to test to become doctors or that kind of life and death thing, but actually your language tests are in some cases that same high stakes, that life and death decision for a lot of people based on the type of testing you do. Could you tell us a little bit more about that side of things?
You bet. We're walking around our office today. We have had a very busy week. We're happy to have BTL here as our guest, and we've been taking around. And so we have an awful lot of doctors or want to be doctors, people coming to Germany to practice medicine. And so that's where we kind of got started with that. And it's kind of interesting for me as a test developer. We have doctors, and it's important, and they need to, they're very nervous. You see them walking around, and they're very nervous and about their test. And well, it's important, but it's really not as important as some people who take telc tests, right? I mean, life or death, taking a telc test determines if you are allowed to stay in Germany or not, or if you get sent back home to some countries which may not be so safe, where you may not have such a bright future. And so we're talking about high stakes testing, of course, for your job. We're talking about high stakes getting into university. Makes a big difference in today's world if you study or if you don't study, if you have that opportunity or you don't have that opportunity. But really basic stuff. Can you stay in this country? Or do you have to go back home? And what happens? There was even a case in Germany, somebody had to leave the country, not because of their language test, thank God, but they actually had to leave Germany, and they were executed when they. So, staying in a country, especially staying in a nice, rich country in Europe, makes a big difference for a lot of people. So high stakes on many levels. One thing I want to throw in, telc, we do. As Rebecca mentioned, we do have 10 different languages and all kinds of different tests. But I'm especially proud to say that we are one of Germany's leading German test board, and we're also one of Europe's leading English test boards. So this little company from Germany is also making very good English tests, and that's the work we do with you, making English tests on Surpass.
Yeah,
right?
I think one of my earliest memories of telc is you spoke at Surpass Conference when you were very new. I don't know if you'd even signed up officially, but you were just wanted to meet people, and you came up on stage and you had a kind of a joke slide up saying, "Hey, we're kind of a big deal." But I think that's quite an accurate statement.
We've been growing in the last few years, and we put a lot of work, all of us, especially in digital development, put a lot of work into it, and we're becoming a big deal. BTL, and people are listening, and people are looking, because of the work we've done with you, people are calling telc and saying, well, how do you do these digital test things? What's going on with that? And so it's given us a great opportunity too as well. So it's been nice.
So that kind of moves on nicely into just our opening section. We'll be quite quick on this, but what was the rationale behind Selleck moving from paper to on-screen tests? Rebecca, do you want to talk us a little bit about that? And then we'll maybe go on to how you've evolved your on-screen items from the paper-based items.
Yeah, I mean, Sean just mentioned the amount of paper and pencil tests that telc is offering currently. And on the slide, you see the current setup. So language testing, I mean, this involves listening, writing, reading, and the spoken exam. And yeah, as you see it here, I mean, examiners have a CD player in the room where they're taking the exam. Students read a paper text, write on a piece of paper, and do the oral exam also face-to-face. But this does not really reflect the way we are living and learning. So I brought this slide. I mean, everybody who's watching us has a smartphone, is doing everything digitally when it comes to the office, for example. So we are not there when it comes to testing. So we are not as digital as we are in testing. And yeah, on the slide you can easily see how the digital setup is. And of course, Surpass is supporting us quite well to offer this setup.
Yeah, different media types, so you can record your own audio, add your own videos, and I think we'll come to that a little bit later on with some of the examples.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, and there are advantages to digital testing. You've seen that through your logistics and you know, the turnaround time for getting results back to candidates.
Yeah, I mean, the evaluation time is crucial for certain test takers. When you think of people who are doing a test for accessing the university, I mean, the faster they get the result, the better for them. You mentioned it, logistics, and probably you saw it when you took a walk through our offices. We have to package a lot of tests, there are secure envelopes, there's lots of paper involved that we have to send around the world. And of course, digital testing requires a different type of infrastructure, but it makes things way easier and faster. And this is something that we want to offer to our clients in the future. Flexible location is also something important for small test centers. We can also think of a remote oral exam in the future. So this flexibility and an independence that is connected to digital testing is something very interesting for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of funny because, you know, this way of paper and pencil testing at the moment, that's our bread and butter. That's what we do. We're looking toward the future. But when I hear Rebecca describe the way we do it at the moment, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? I mean, we're sending CDs all over the world. We're packaging stuff in super secure envelopes and then secure boxes with secure drivers, and they're carrying it back and forth. All this, you saw this amounts of paperwork and people with papers and answer sheets and scanners and all this stuff. And if you think about it, it is a bit insane.
Yeah.
And you know, with something like BTL, we can go forward that way. We get out of it, and it's all for the advantage of the test taker. It really is. Give him the opportunity to take the test. It's easy for him. We really see a future where, just as Rebecca said, they're using their smart devices, right? They can take a test. It's easy for them. They feel comfortable. It's with something they're used to. In and out. They get the results right away.
Yeah.
And everybody's happy, yeah.
One of the other things, sorry.
No, I mean, talking about security, I mean, I also mentioned randomization. We could offer an individual item set to each candidate by using a software like Surpass.
You can't do that with paper, right? You cannot, I mean, with paper, everybody gets the same test. That's our point. And with Surpass, everybody gets a unique test, so there's less cheating.
Yeah, and I think earlier as well we were talking about the idea of the regulators and how long you have to keep all of this paper for. I mean, telc works with not just the German regulators, but you work with Ofqual in the UK, for example. And
we're regulated by Ofqual, and they want to see quality. They want to see, I mean, they want to see quality, but they really want to see security, right? That's all, and we have it. You know, with BTL, we can offer that.
Yeah. How long do you keep your papers for on average? Is that something I can ask on camera? Or?
We were talking about, I mean, everybody has different regulations throughout the world. In general, we have our paper exams in a room which you were not allowed to see in the back here. I gave you a tour, but that room is kind of our secret room. So we keep them on site here at telc, at Telc Plaza, on site for 6 months. And then we also have a secure document center. I don't even know what the proper name for it is, but they actually, not only for us, you probably know Frankfurt's a city of banks. And so there's this outfit that has they archive documents for all the banks and telc tests, super secure. They hold on them for 2 years, and then they have a process for securely destroying the documentation. So after 2 years, they're destroyed, and then we keep a digital archive for 10 years.
Right.
And then we're back to it, aren't we? I mean, all this paper going
Digital
back and
archive.
forth, and they have to, you can't even just throw it in the wastebasket. I mean, my wastebasket, I can't throw stuff away here at Telc, right? I have to take it downstairs. We have this, you probably remember this metal garbage can with a slot in it, right? Anyway.
So yeah, very, very secure, but we just, we'll move on to this one quickly. So apologies, I forgot to change the German over to English as we discussed. Maybe you can
what could
translate
it possibly
for us.
mean?
So it's digital testing at Telc.
Digital testing at Telc. And so this slide basically summarizes everything.
Exactly. In order to develop digital testing at Telc, to move from paper to on-screen with our Telc quality, we started our pilot project, the digital school exam that we also presented at this year's Surpass Conference. And we're figuring out how to move from paper to on-screen.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I mean, it started off as a learning project for us.
Right.
I think it was, thinking in retrospect, it was probably our boss trying to force us to learn how to do it and figure it out, and for Telc to acquire the know-how to be able to produce this in the future with a new format.
Okay, so we'll just talk a little bit about, we're saying about the evolution of that. So the easy answer would have been to take all of your existing questions, turn them into multiple choice, and put them onto the new software. But we mentioned, didn't we, that you've done a lot of that just because that's a good foundation. You already have the psychometrics for those items, and that's helping you with the transition and learn the software. But since then, you've started to use a lot of different question types and integrate media into that. Maybe talk about that a little more detail if we have time.
You already said everything.
Oh, well, there you go. Is there more to...
I would, I mean, the only thing to start off I would like to say is that our first instinct was, if we're going to have new software and if we're going to go digital, then for God's sake, do something new with it. Be innovative. And that was we never had the idea of just folding old items into the new test, right? We really wanted, and that was the idea with this from school to job test that we developed. Start from scratch, start really from the bottom up and do everything new. And that was, I think, one of our main things is new items, don't make just multiple choice items on the screen.
Which was fitting nicely together with the target group that we have. So we were developing a new exam for students in middle schools, 9th and 10th grade, who were preparing for the first job. And of course, in the first job, you need email, you need telephone, you need things that are
not just writing a postcard home to your parents or your parents.
And this was really going nicely together with the approach of testing the limits of Surpass and creating new item types.
Very good. And that then leads us into another very important topic of the quality assurance. So I believe what I'm going to hand over to you in a second, Sean. You're going to talk us through some of Telc's existing quality assurance processes that, they were there before on screen, but how they've kind of helped with this new item types and help you get those concepts through. Is that, do you want to take the stage?
That's a big question, and I would say there are two sides to it. The first is in the development process. How do we make our items? I mean, of course, as everybody knows, you bake a cake, you start with quality ingredients, right? You put the best ingredients in. And then there's what happens after we've made the test when students have already done it, what the quality assurance is there, right? So making this test, it was really important for us to gather a lot of information from around us. We did design thinking workshops. We really tried to talk to stakeholders as much as possible. For stakeholders, our teachers, our students, our parents, administrators, examiners, of course, all getting their input, right? So that's important for us because we want to test what the students can do and not test what they can't do. So we have to make a test that fits the student, right? And if they can't do it, then why should we test it? You fail everybody and you move on with your life, right? No, make a test. Everybody has some kind of chance of passing the test, of getting some points, getting a good score, maybe even passing, right? So there's that side, stakeholders, right? The other side is of course, basing everything on the Common European Framework of Reference, the CEFR, right? Everything's CEFR-based. So every skill, right, the speaking, reading, writing, and listening are all related to CEFR scales, to say can-do statements, or scales in the Common European Reference Framework of Reference. Sorry,
a lot of acronyms in this presentation.
So everything's related to the CEFR. So it has a foundation. So this skill tests this, and it's at that level. If you take a look at the CEFR, I recommend the CEFR for selective reading. Probably not something that you want to read all the way through in one go, but maybe if sitting on the train for 5 minutes, you can page through it. But where can you find, and we can do this very well with our items, like, well, there's an item there, how does it relate to the CEFR? What am I testing? So we know what we're testing and the student knows what we're testing. Quality coming into it, right? Coming into the quality, of course, our item writers, they know what they're writing, and then having everything reviewed by our English language specialists, right? People that actually worldwide looking at it and say, yes, we believe that this does what we say it does, that it's working that way. Coming out of the test then, once students have taken, we had practice tests all over Germany. We did an awful lot of traveling, Rebecca, mostly Rebecca. I also did a little bit myself.
700 students in total. Yeah.
700 students. Quite a bit. Traveling the country, kind of our road show that we had, but we're collecting data, right? And this gets back to something you mentioned earlier, that we do indeed have some of our old items or some of our paper items on the test, and we use those as markers. We say, well, in the old test, the student did this. Now we have some new items that nobody's ever done before. Are we sure that it does what it's supposed to do? And so we had it all in one test. They took the test. We could analyze the data. We say, well, from the analytics, right, from the psychometrics that we have from this test, the items perform the way that they're supposed to perform, and they do what they're supposed to do.
Equivalence, to use the
equivalence, absolutely. That's one of the main things we're looking at here, right, that this test works the same way. And that's a nice thing. A paper test, it does measure your language skills, and we have a test here at TELC. We've been doing it for 50 years, so we do know how to measure people's language ability. However, we've only done it on paper. We have to prove to people, really start from scratch, that we can also do it with a computer, right? And it's not enough that I say, hey, it's okay. We have to have data that says, well, the data shows it actually does the same thing the paper does, or maybe if it does, maybe it's even better, right? And Rebecca said some ways that it improves the paper. It's faster. Maybe we can test more quickly, more easily, right? So there's lots of benefits out of it.
Great. Okay.
Yeah. We're still on quality assurance here. One of the fun parts of quality assurance that we do is get everybody together and have a standard setting meeting here. If you see, we had a group of people. We invited people from all over. I want to say all over the world, but I think it was all over Europe this time.
Yeah.
I don't think we got anybody from outside of...
I don't think so.
No. And so what we did, had a group of experts come in. We invited them to Frankfurt at our expense and hosted a 2-day event where we really went through each and every item point by point and said, well, this is the data. We really open up everything, and we open up ourselves to a lot of criticism. So we're naked there. This is everything. Right?
These aren't TELC employees.
No.
They're experts in their
TELC
field.
employees. There's some BTL folks in there. Anybody that, if you're watching anybody from BTL, you might recognize one or two BTL individuals who were also very took really active part in our standard setting. So we get groups from all over Europe together, and we show them everything. We ask them to go through the test bit by bit. We discuss things, and we take a close look at everything and say, well, does this test do what you say it's going to do? And I think it was interesting looking at it. Of course, not the BTL people, but some of our TELC staff, or some of the experts that come in with TELC were very critical right, of a digital test, or they were, I guess, not critical, as suspicious maybe, or apprehensive. Well, is it really? And it was nice because starting off very apprehensive. Well, this can't work. It can't possibly. You can't do. And at the end, having really positive feedback from them, saying, okay, well, I understand how it works now.
I think one of the examples that we mentioned earlier when we were talking about preparation for this webinar, you said about the video questions that you guys have started putting together as a result of this. So Rebecca, do you want to tell us a little bit about how telc have embraced video, and then maybe Sean, you could talk about the reactions that people had to those?
Yeah, I mentioned the pilot project and the stakeholder research we did back then. So we did a survey with students, and I mean, it's not a surprise, but one of the most important results was, videos are super important for this target group. So many students are learning with YouTube videos, with tutorials in the afternoon. There are many teachers who are already applying the flipped classroom concept with videos. So students watch a video at home, they prepare for the next day. So videos are an essential part of nowadays learning, and we wanted to reflect this in our digital exam as well.
And so how was video received?
Well, absolutely. What she said was, the feedback we got, and so I come back to telc and I talk to my test development team here, and these are, people, some of them have been making paper tests for 30 years.
Yeah.
You cannot possibly, are you out of your mind? A video on a test that has no place in an English test. They'll be distracted, they'll be looking at other things. It can't possibly be a valid item. And I said, well, we're doing a new pilot project, and our general line manager asked us personally to do it, and could we have some money to make some videos? And so we got, a little stack of money and invited a team over. We filmed everything here in our telc lunchroom that I showed you this morning, and we made some really, really nice videos. And the funny thing that came out of that was we did two things. We showed the team the videos, and they said, oh, actually, they're pretty good looking videos. They're really nice. And then we showed them the psychometrics from these items, and they worked.
Right.
They functioned well, as we predicted they would function, of course, but they work actually very well, and they make very nice test items. I mean, the test takers love them too. And so what came out of all of this is the people that were dead set against using videos and didn't ever want to spend a cent on videos are now coming back for new projects, coming in and say, well, how did you make those? Could you tell us how you did that? We'd like to make some videos the same way you did it, right? And this is the same person that 2 years ago said you cannot possibly put a video in a test item. So it's been a really nice turnaround. That's just one example that we gleaned from our research that we did, bringing new ideas in and having a little bit of pushback from colleagues.
It's good. It's nice to hear that you're getting that feedback, not just the positive, but all of the criticism and constructive criticism, obviously from people that you're inviting in, and taking that on board and being able to do better things with it. And that leads us into our next section, which is some example items. So unfortunately we can't do this live, and we haven't been able to stream any of the videos because of limitations of live streaming and kind of getting that technology in, but we can talk through some screenshots of the different item types you've been creating. So let's just move on and start with, this is a really nice, really bright, colourful question. So you look at it.
Colourful hotspot task. So the test taker listens to a description, to a mailbox message, and has to find the way, and when he thinks that he has found the right place, he just clicks and moves on to the next task. It's not as easy as it seems,
I was just going to say, Rebecca makes it sound like we just, there's an item and
stick
then
it on the page and away you go. But
pop and bump.
There's a lot of background work.
There's a lot of background work. I guess the bottom line is the software allows us to really put it together very easily, right? You can see there's a hotspot item, and there's some audio that goes with it, and it's all really built. With BTL, we were able to put it together quite well, but it also invited us. BTL gave us a tool, which was an invitation or a challenge. What are you going to do with it, right? So we thought, well, what can we do with it? And there is a little bit of work involved, right? And the one is having an artist draw these pictures. I think she did a wonderful job. Her name, by the way, is Lisa Flurbeis here in Germany, and she hopefully you're listening, Lisa. And she drew a great set of graphics for us. She does quite a bit of work for us here at telc. Wonderful pictures. And then, of course, writing a dialogue, having the dialogue recorded at the studio, and writing a proper dialogue that's going to be a challenge enough for a student that we're able to measure his language skills on it.
Yeah, because I mean, writing a script for video is very different to writing, say, a piece of copy for a website. The way that people speak is very different to how they read. You've got to be careful not to use words that are too complicated, so they don't.
That's right. It has to be. I mean, our test here is level A2B1.
Yeah.
And so we're looking for. I mean, it could be a simple map item with the picture. I mean, that's a nice thing about Lisa's work. With this picture, I could make a difficult item out of it, or I could make a very easy item out of it. Right. Go to the blue house, or tuck blue house, right? Or you know. Whatever, but so we have to kind of, with the recording that goes on,
so
make it
the background line.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is the kind of thing that if somebody else wanted to do, say, a geography exam, they could just upload a map. You know, they wouldn't have to get something drawn.
Well, like I said, the hotspot items are very, even I can do it. They're very easy to use. You know, you've got your, this is your BTL2 for making the hotspot item. You just mark the area. It could be really as large or as small as you want. You could make it in a square form, or you can set the dots yourself, you know, the shape of the hotspot item.
Yeah, the polygon.
Yeah. And so it's quite easy to use and setting it up. And it's just for us as test developers, just like on a paper test, you can't just write a set of words down and say you're done, right? We want to be able to measure it. So a lot of things going on. So it was really nice for us to have a tool there. That was the thing, I guess, is when we first met you, you know, 2 years ago or when it was, you and Emma and Dave came and showed us that. And I said, well, we have this thing called a hotspot item. And I remember we thought, oh, what can we do with that? We started thinking and thinking of ways that we could really employ it into a telc test. Yeah,
that's good. I've just noticed a question coming on the board. I was going to save it for after the section, but actually I think this is quite relevant here. We were talking about the scripts and things as well. So James has asked, did you have any trouble getting item writers involved in creating the new item types?
Actually, no.
They were pounding our. No, I have a couple of excellent item writers that we work with that do most of the writing. Really excellent people, and they I couldn't have held them back. I mean, they were totally.
Yeah, really up for it.
Unstoppable, yeah. I mean, she wants to do more. I can't keep up. I mean, they're after both of us. You know, it's like, when's the next project? We want to do more. They love BTL. One of our item writers came with us to visit you at BTL also, and that was absolutely no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they?
I think all of them. I mean, I'm lucky because I'm on the English team, and I think our English writers, pretty much all of them, want to be part of it, and they really want to be part of it. I would say maybe the German writers are a little bit more old-fashioned, where they would, you know, but we also have a couple writers there that are very interested in that language as well.
Did they already have experience sort of considering different rich media question types, the item writers, or had they traditionally been doing pen and paper, and was there some kind of transition period for them to learn how to create different questions, or actually was it all just the same? Once they started, were they happy that it was the same process?
I think it was the two of, I mean...
we're talking about Laura Edwards, I can say her name, Laura Edwards, and she had a little bit of experience. She's excited, and she's excited in digital media. The other writer I worked with mainly on this project, Suzanne Mccall, was interesting because actually she didn't have any experience with digital, but it was absolutely no problem. I was a little skeptical myself, I have to admit. But no, bam, she took right off, and the two of them together. And
she was very curious and wanted to explore the possibilities she had now with Surpass, so that was a very positive experience.
Yeah, I would say with our writers, it's and others have worked on it since then too, but for our writers generally, it's been a very positive experience. Nobody's had anything negative to
But of course, it's recommendable to set up a training session at the very beginning.
And we just had a follow-up question coming on that as well. How involved in the actual design of the assessment are your item writers? Do they get involved in, say, the layout of the on-screen questions and that kind of thing? Or do they kind of give you the question and then it's up to you to lay it out how you know best?
I think for this project it was an iterative approach. So I think they gave us suggestions and then we tried it out ourselves in a small user group here at telc, made improvements, and then we had this first trial run at schools where we received direct feedback from the students. Because, I mean, you know this extended matching task, for example. So a few students struggled using it. So we added a short hint in the description and then it worked well. So it was really, a learning process for us as well.
It's kind of cyclical, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It was cyclical and anybody was really welcome to jump in at any point. So they could throw some stuff out. I had plenty of ideas that they shut down and said, no, it'll never work, and the other way around. And I think, at least in this project, we were all more or less on the same level.
Yeah, I think that's important, isn't it, to be able to be on that same level and take each other's
And we needed
feedback
the
on board.
ideas. I mean, our main thing was to be innovative. I mean, that was our number one. Everything else is, I'm in charge, you're in charge. And the main thing. We also have deadlines at telc, so those are kind of important to watch too.
You can't have fun all the time. You've got to actually get
people
the,
like, where's the test?
stuff done.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so thank you for those questions. Remember, everyone else, if you have anything, you can ask it live, or if you're watching the recording of this, you can email us ben.brady@btl.com, and I'd be happy to forward any questions on to Sean and Rebecca and their colleagues here at telc. We part of the Surpass community, so you're always happy to answer questions and, and ask your own, aren't you? So let's move on to example number 2. I think we spent quite a while chatting there.
It's so fun, we just have to talk about it.
It is. Well, we've got 3 more examples.
Oh boy,
so,
all right, well, we've got a lot of work to do
we've
still,
got
don't
another
we?
10 minutes before the scheduled wrap-up time, but we can always talk more afterwards and release behind-the-scenes videos, I suppose. But moving on, so this one is based on WhatsApp, isn't it? It's commonly used. I heard that even the different groups in British Parliament have been using WhatsApp apparently to discuss certain things that are going on at the moment. But very popular amongst young people, not just WhatsApp, but different messaging apps. Rebecca, do you want to tell us a little bit about this question and the ideas behind it?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I think almost every one of us has WhatsApp installed or another chat program, and it's definitely part of the students' reality. So why not including it as well as a writing item to our test? And I think Sean also has the numbers and the psychometrics and can prove that it worked out
really well. Yeah. The idea was, how can I say it? The idea was that we had feedback from our design thinking, from our seminars, and everybody was saying. I mean, I guess writing is always a problem. How do you do something writing that it really is germane to today's life, right? So the idea was, well, if you do writing, it should be something that they're used to doing. Teachers said that, students said that. What can we do with it? So we have writing here, WhatsApp, and everybody does WhatsApp, and we said, well, could we design an item that's more or less what they do with WhatsApp? We have had a little criticism, and people say, oh, nobody would ever write a 30-word WhatsApp. And I say, all right, well, not 100% authentic, but it's a little bit closer to what people are doing and what they're used to, right? The nice thing about this is, we're doing kind of a WhatsApp group, and they're typing, right? Which was also an issue, that the students are typing. Absolutely no problem for them using a keyboard. We learned.
Right.
But the really nice thing about it is we can, once the test is completed, we can give them to a rater. They could get it marked, and they can get results very quickly, which would take a longer turnaround time if it were on paper and pencil. Okay. So, very nice for several reasons.
Very good, very good. Moving on to number 3. So,
this is a tutorial. So I mentioned the flipped classroom concept earlier. So we know that many teachers are applying this in their class. So students watch a tutorial on YouTube as a homework, and then the next day they work on the content. So again, it was clear that we would like to include tutorials as well. And I think this is a very nice example for our item
So is this a video that we can see?
This is actually
on
a video, yeah.
And that hand would be writing out.
It's a mix of text and image, and in the end, students have to answer certain questions.
It's also a new spin on reading, right?
Yeah.
Reading up until now has just been a white piece of paper and black text. It's like, well, what can we do to make reading a little more fun, a little more exciting, to get them excited about taking the test? And so we have this. They've got pictures in the background. You've got the handwriting. It's actually kind of popular. A lot of advertisements do that, and I think it looks nice. It's kind of clever.
Nice thing,
if nothing else, it makes the test a little more fun for them, you know, which also is positive for the test taker. Absolutely.
Yeah. It is very, and I mean, you said before about videos creating distractions and that being kind of seen as a negative, but in the real world, actually, if people are using these videos to learn, maybe there is a distraction, but that could be part of the test. You know, it depends what you're testing, doesn't it?
Throwing those in distraction, making them feel a little more comfortable with it, you know, instead of getting them not so focused on the test element of it, but it's kind of fun. And I don't know. I mean, me personally, I've done this test myself, and I had fun doing it. I learned something. This one's about Jane Goodall, so I learn a little bit something. I see a picture of her. I never saw a picture of her, you know, and then so it is a lot more fun.
It's not often you can say a test is fun, is it?
Well, that was actually, if you think back, that was one of our main objectives, is to make a fun test. To make a test where people say, "Oh, have you seen the telc English? You got to take this English test." I don't know if we really gotten that far.
I mean, we had students saying this at the end. I mean, in one of the trials, we included a survey at the end of the test, and we had actually very good results. Students saying, this didn't feel like an exam, or this was the first time that testing was like a little bit more fun.
Yeah, good. Yeah. That's good to hear. So. The last example we've got here, so we've got what looks like a long text entry and another video.
It's a new approach to creative writing. So there's a video without sound, and students have to write a short story about what they think is happening to this man or what he's doing next. And again, I think in the standard setting we saw that this was working out.
This was an interesting item. Kind of the method to our madness is a new descriptor in the CEFR that I mentioned before. So up until now, we've had listening, reading, writing, and speaking, right? Something new that they decided, the Council of Europe, the Common European Reference Framework reference, was the adding mediation, right? Mediation. What is mediation? A lot of people say, well, mediation is translation, but mediation is kind of getting an idea from A to B, right? And it might be between two people. You don't understand what he's saying, and mediation there. But it could be a lot of things. In today's world, we do an awful lot of mediation. We look at a picture and we interpret it, right? And that's what we're doing here. We're asking people, there's a picture with no sound, and mediation to make a story out of it. So they're using their language skills, they're putting some writing together, but they're also mediating between, what they see and what they write. So doing two things at once, I tried it out. The funny thing about this item is that it did work out. We got good results, and they wrote great texts on it. But a lot of people were skeptical. It's like, that'll never work. And that's like, what are they going to write? What are they going to do? And I remember showing it around, and it's like, I don't know, what am I going to do? But these people, these kids, I mean, and maybe that's the thing, they're 16 years, they're writing these wonderful texts, My man's at work and he's not having a good day, and he's, these great stories that they made up. And so we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun doing the marking on this as well, seeing what they wrote. And
another question that's come in from Tim this time, actually, which fits in nicely, is, do you think that we talk a lot about these tests being fun? Do you think the candidates, the test takers, still see them as being a serious test if it's too fun? Maybe that's something you've not had feedback on, or have you?
Well, I mean, the setting is the same. I mean, they're doing this exam in the school. There is a teacher invigilating. They know that the result has a consequence, but they see that it's something closer to their reality, and I think they're appreciating this. And they recognize familiar things there, familiar media, and this calms them down as well.
They're paying money for it, and they take that seriously, right?
Yes.
When either they themselves or their dad has to shell out €100 for the test, and they get, hopefully, a certificate for it. So there is a certain gravitas to it, right? And they're preparing for it. The teacher takes it seriously. So we try to make the test as fun as possible. But I think there are enough elements in it where they say, okay, there's something going on here. Bottom line, Dad had to pay €100 for it.
They're still giving serious answers.
Seriously.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're just heading into the last few minutes now. But if we look briefly at future developments, so the benefits to the language testing community and then the benefits of collaborating with the Surpass community. With regard to the language testing community, I think we've got a summary slide on there, but we've actually talked about a lot of these topics today through the webinar. You know, it's you're creating new ideas. Those ideas can become reality. We'll maybe look at the future where things like mediation, maybe a test where we can have the video play and you've got a timed audio response at the same time and you're having to translate on the fly. There's lots of different things that we've kind of discussed off the record, isn't there, that are really interesting. But most important of all is the reliability, the validity, and the fact that the tests are objective. I think that's what we've determined here today. We've got new ideas. It's a fun test. However, it is still,
Still
regulated,
a test,
still a test, and but candidates are loving it. Just quickly then on benefits of working with Surpass community. So this year at the Surpass Conference, Sean, you were part of a workshop that we held where you trialled some of these new question types. You asked other members of the community what they thought. Gave and received a lot. Would you like to share a bit about that with us, your thoughts on that?
I don't know, my thought was I was a little nervous going in. I'm meeting, well, you can see from the picture here, all kinds of people from Surpass. So I was very nervous going in. What are people going to say? How much do I have to discuss with them? How much do I have to defend my work? And then I was also nervous that, at the Surpass conference, they have a choice of 3 or 4 different things. And I'm like, well, I hope somebody shows up. But here we are, we're at this room. The room was packed full of people. We did a presentation. They were very interested. The criticism I got was constructive criticism, so it was very useful, and nobody was really opposed to it. Everybody really gave us a lot of support, gave us some new ideas, and really liked the work we do. So I was totally excited. I mean, it wasn't what I expected. I thought, you go to England, everybody's going to be kind of sour and grumpy, and
no,
you're actually quite friendly people. So.
Yeah, we try our best.
You try.
We had a lot of really good feedback to BTL about how the session had been running. I think a few different organisations were actually saying, "Hey, we want to do this next year." So that feedback will all be circulating. You can see Michaela in this picture. Unfortunately, she couldn't join us today, but she had a lot to do with it as well. And
that's right.
I think if people wanted to know more about the session details, maybe they could get in touch with you guys and Michaela to share that. And you talk about different people choosing different sessions. Rebecca, you actually chose to not go to Sean's session because you worked with him.
I knew it quite well. No, I mean, the Surpass Conference is a wonderful opportunity also from a business development perspective. I mean, we have to think ahead, we have to stay very close to the trends, we have to see what BTL is developing. So, for example, Dave's session about loft testing, the whole topic around online invigilation is very interesting for us, and it's always a wonderful opportunity to share ideas. Yeah.
Okay, just going to finish off. We've had one more question in, if one of you would like to field this. So this is from IB, and she's saying, how do the student scores and pass rates on new tests compare to previous paper tests? Is that something you have enough data on to answer?
That's the whole reason we had the standard setting in our validity argument. A B1 is a B1. At telc, we test according to Cepher scales, and so it measures the same thing, and we've proven that. We've proven that our school-to-job test measures A2, B1 levels, the same as our paper tests. So it's exactly the same. That was the work, this equivalence that you mentioned, right? So the pass rates are the same thing too. I mean, we have a 60%. You have to, we gauge the tests at what level is B1, but a B1 is a B1. So that's my answer. It measures the Cepher scale exactly the same way that the paper tests measure the Cepher scale.
Right.
So,
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
But if IB wants more information, would you be happy to talk to him in more detail?
I'm very open. We love sharing information.
I appreciate that we're running short on time here, so that was a very concise answer. Thank you for that. So, just to say thank you everyone for listening and watching at home. Thanks to our video crew that have joined us over in Germany. It's been
Thank you
long-
very much
long
for
trip.
coming to Germany.
Yeah,
It's been
thank
great
you.
having
Thank you for hosting us.
You're always welcome. And
Yeah.
anybody else, come to Telc Plaza, see us.
Yeah, great stuff. So if you want to watch again or you want to share this with your colleagues, you can go to btl.com/surpass/past-webinars, and we will see you again in the near future for a release update video.
Oh boy,
So
I can't wait.
that'll be with our documentation
A few
team.
sleepless nights then. That's
We'll be joined by Holly from the documentation team for that
okay.
one. So be her first time presenting, but I've seen her do it off screen and
She'll
she's
manage.
fantastic.
So
So
Christmas comes twice this year, right?
Christmas, that's right, indeed. Right, thank you for watching.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.